Hi, this is Marco Pimentel. Welcome to the podcast Someone Like You. In this first season, you'll discover founders, creators, entrepreneurs, and business owners who are passionate about creating business models with lasting, sustainable climate solutions. Your carbon footprint. What is it? What makes it? How do you reduce it? How do you offset it? There's a lot of complexities and lots of answers, and there are a lot of solutions. They're often sometimes easy or sometimes complex. And that brings us to this week's episode. I had the chance to sit down with Jack Bruner. He's the co-founder of the Carbon Neutral Club, a Canadian climate tech company based in Toronto seeking to make climate action accessible to anyone. Jack holds a Bachelor in Political Science and Economics from the University of Guelph, and over his career as a digital product manager has helped build a number of technology for good products. Carbon Neutral Club, his most recent venture, has grown rapidly over the past months with members across Canada and the United States. The climate tech company offers consumers, as well as businesses, a simple path to estimate and offset their personal carbon footprints. And as a reward, members get access to year-round savings with their 70-plus sustainable brand partners, such as ChopValue, Anian, and a host of other amazing brands. The idea behind Carbon Neutral Club is to give anyone the tools to understand personal climate impact and then incentivize them to begin their journey to reducing their carbon footprint. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Well, Jack, it's great for you to join us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation and everything that you're building. At Red Brick, we recently obviously partnered and rolled out Carbon Neutral Club to our employees as part of our looking into what we can do from a climate perspective. So I love brands and I've loved chatting about them, and so I'm very curious around just how did this all start? Like where did you yourself? I know there's Jeff Packer and Ro Eden, both of them your co-founders. But yeah, how did you come up with this?
Oh yeah, the journey is a long, exciting one. What I'll tell you my story, and it intersects obviously with Jeff and Roe and their own climate journey and how Carbon Neutral Club came to be. But the beginning of my climate journey starts with my mom dragging me to a art gallery exhibit at the AGO here in Toronto, the Art Gallery of Ontario. I actually did not want to go. It was an art installation that paired with a documentary called The Anthropocene. And if anyone listening hasn't seen the documentary, it's called The Anthropocene, The Human Epoch. It's incredibly powerful, and it really beautifully and unfortunately, I guess, tells the story of how human being and human behavior has transitioned the Earth out of the last geological era, the Holocene, which was recorded as one of the most stable times of the Earth's atmosphere, lasting thousands, tens of thousands of years. And we've through carbon emissions and other human behavior mining of the planet have shifted the planet into a new geological era called the Anthropocene. And this art exhibit on this day in this time, this was back in 2018. It really changed the course of my life and the way I saw the world and how I wanted to have an impact on it. I left there that day knowing 100% that I needed to find a way to work on climate. At the time, I was working in tech at Conrad Group and then later TWG as a product manager, just building and launching amazing and digital solutions with great teams. But I started tinkering on the side with, how do I intersect climate and technology in a way that plays to skill sets that I already owned and could then potentially have a major impact. And was tinkering with some ideas around how to make individual climate action possible at scale. Never really made it click. So I ended up putting it on this idea on the shelf for about a year and a half. It was a really half-baked concept, and then the pandemic hit, and Jeff and I, who have been friends for a long time, he and I actually met back at Conrad Group. We worked together originally, and we've been buddies ever since. We were catching up one day, and early pandemic lockdown, and we just kind of in passing had made this kind of realization or call to that it seemed as though climate was getting more attention than ever before, to a scale in the mainstream media and dinner table conversation like it had never been in the past. But that this interest and awareness wasn't quite translating into action in a way proportionally that you'd expect or hope. So I don't know, we were bored or had more time on our hands or what in the pandemic, but we decided to just dive a little bit deeper into, is this true? Is this something that we're witnessing? Is there data behind it? Turns out there is. And it turns out people generally don't engage with climate action at a personal level, don't translate this intent or awareness into action for two underlying issues or reasons. The first being complexity. It's really hard to understand what your entry point is, how what's meaningful, what's BS from an impact perspective, how to wade through real news, fake news to understand the problem at its core. And then the other is cost. This is really measurable, right? This is the green premium concept, that a sustainable product or service alternative comes with an associated increased cost to bring that product to market. So living a more sustainable life is cost prohibitive in a lot of ways, which is very sad. So we put our heads together, did a whole bunch of testing, and came out about a year ago with what is now Carbon Neutral Club, which very simply is a membership program that lets individuals measure their personal carbon footprint, offset that footprint by funding carbon removal projects around the world that will put them at a point or closer to a point of personal carbon neutrality. And then as a reward for it and an incentive to create behavior change in the way that they go about their lives, members gain access to year-round savings with sustainable brand partners of ours who range everything from clothing to food, wellness, grocery goods, home goods, athletic goods, baby products, and on and on. The idea being we're trying to make the sustainable decision a little bit easier to find and put it on price parity with the traditionally manufactured or brought to market concept. So I guess that's the quick view of it.
Yeah, and I guess at that point of being in that art exhibit and seeing, and I guess that for people that don't know, it's that period of time where I think it's the last 50 or 60 years where the Earth has fluctuated in terms of a certain temperature. It's basically been for, I think, 10,000 years. It's been steady at, plus or minus one degree, I believe is that number, and then it's now, obviously, as we know, it's warming. So did you know that, like, while you're working at all the different companies, did you just know that you wanted to combine just tech and climate, or was it just that you thought just in your mind climate, or did you just know that there was some sort of combination there that you wanted to be involved in?
I'd be lying if I said growing up, my path was climate and I knew that I was going to be here. For the beginning of my career personally, I was really excited about technologies. You can tinker with big problems, solving them at scale. And I got really into the, building solutions, finding the right solutions to the right problems. But at a certain point, building widgets for the sake of building widgets got a little bit unsatisfying personally. And this, for me, again, like my climate journey started really in this exhibit in a meaningful way. But Jeff and Roe, they have their own onboardings and how they came to intersect with climate that are equally important to this story. But being here now, being able to work on climate, which in my perspective, in my worldview, is the most critical problem of our time and our generation, that needs to be solved in order for the security and future generations to exist in the way that we have experienced in the past, and to be able to work on that using technology, that really can be high leverage, high visibility, high impact potential solution to the problem it makes waking up and getting to work really easy. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing, right? I think a lot of people are probably just curious what it's like to be working in that, in that space or in that industry where, like you said, we need to be doing something. It's obviously a massively important and critical issue, but you get to work on it every single day. So, like yourself and your team, like when you're hiring people right now, are you finding that, a lot of people are applying? There's more opportunity to bringing people on. Like, just for people to kind of understand that part, is it, this it's tech, it's you're building things that are fast forward and innovative, but then you also get to do something that is impactful. So I think that seems, obviously, there's nonprofits, there's a lot of things that you can do to achieve that as well, but just curious around that aspect. Are you finding, hiring people and just the team morale, like, is it easier to keep the spirits up, I guess?
Yeah, it's I guess it depends what the IPCC has released on any given day about morale is, but
Yeah.
hiring has been a really interesting path for us. I mean, we have an incredible team. We're a team of five, three co-founders, and then Anne and Alex have joined the team. But we are scaling and have had a really, I would say, unexpected experience of like inbound uh, applications, requests for volunteering. There's been this really interesting um, level of support and engagement from folks across different functions, developers, designers, marketers who see what we're working on, see the underlying value impact and purpose driven nature of it, and want to know that they're doing their part. Um, this is a symptom and outcome of a much bigger trend that is been very definable in the last, I don't know, 2 3 years. I think it's been exacerbated by the pandemic and the talent market shift, this like great resignation that it's now being called. That people are, particularly millennial Gen Zers, are moving, shifting their jobs, even leaving jobs without another one lined up, um, for lots of reasons. One of them, though, one of the leading ones being a general identity misalignment with their employer and feeling their employer doesn't necessarily isn't necessarily working on or engaged with similar values or problems or purpose-driven initiatives that they themselves are engaged with or thinking about at a personal level. So there's been this huge empowerment of the workforce at scale to say, you know what, I have value, and I want to make sure that the value that I'm creating is working on not just, the bottom line of this corporation, which matters, which is critical, but that the bottom line of this company is also pushing forward other social environmental initiatives that keep me up at night. So Carbon Neutral Club has been on the winning end of that from like just a talent acquisition perspective, but we also work to make this reality we're seeing possible for companies who don't have a purpose-driven initiative. We can't all be purpose-driven. We need widgets. We need them. So we've benefited, but we're working on making giving companies the tools to also use values and purpose-driven work to draw in this same group of talent.
Yeah. So Carbon Neutral Club, it serves, kind of two, I think, the same end customer at the end of the day, being an individual that wants to look to offset their carbon footprint. Then they have the ability to purchase from brands with what you would, consider it's a benefit, because they have to reduce their climate, the climate tax in terms of price parities and costs. But you also work, like you said, with a lot of companies, and then companies being able to offer this for their employees. So, can you just talk a little bit around how does, we talk about carbon footprint all the time, but, what does it mean, and what does it mean to a consumer that would be engaging with Carbon Neutral Club, and how could they see, that reduction, or some of the tools that Carbon Neutral Club offers?
Yeah, great question. It's core to what we do in the model that is awareness in climate. So a carbon footprint, really simply, is the sum of the carbon emissions that an individual creates throughout their daily life as they go around their activities. So these are, the way in which you consume the travel, your ground travel, air travel, your household, the energy consumption that your life demands of the local energy grid. All of these are inputs, each of them having their own amount of carbon emissions associated with, which all feed into a single carbon footprint calculation. With what we aim to do with Carbon Neutral Club is create awareness, education around not just what your footprint is. So that number, of course, is important to understand the scale and then comparing that number to what is good, what is bad, but breaking that number down into its component parts. So a human being, a typical consumer, let's call it a North American individual, the major inputs to an individual's carbon footprint fall into four categories: diet, consumption, travel, and household. Household making up energy and the goods and items within the home. So with creating your Carbon Neutral Club account, the first thing that you do, which is a really important part of the educational journey we take our members on, is answer some questions to get a rough understanding of what are your habits like, where are you doing quote unquote well, where can you improve, where do you have opportunities to reduce, and then based on that, we've got a few data points. We've got what your total carbon footprint is, and that is on average in North America about 15 tons of carbon emissions per year annually. And we now also know kind of the breakdown, where you're good, where you're bad, how you can improve within it. Calculating your carbon footprint, offsetting it, two great steps. Everybody should do them if you can, if you have the tools to, for sure. But we don't offset our way out of the climate crisis. We reduce. We need to reduce our impact overall. So the third component is taking the context on an individual, understanding now where you're good, where you're bad, and helping them to chart the course of reducing their footprint over time. This is equally an educational journey than it is a tactical, what do I need to do? What behaviors can I change? And then what companies can help me evolve certain aspects of my life? And this, again, we pull on our brand partner network that ranges, all the way from, meat, plant-based products, goods, services, foods, grocers, all the way to ways in which you, clothe yourself and your family and go about general consumption within your life. So we try and connect the dots between education, but then also making it really tactical and obvious as to how to go about your personal climate reduction journey.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into the company side and carbon offset sides, but just talking a little bit about the brands that you partner with. How many
Mm.
brands currently are within Carbon Neutral Club that you partnered with?
So we have 72 sustainable brand partners, and they're all amazing. I wish I could shout them all out because they're just the best at what they do in every category. Um, as I mentioned, kind of the category coverage. There's 72 who are live, but the list is growing dramatically week by week. Um, and yeah, I guess the way we think about sustainability generally is, of course, there's an environmental lens. So what is their environmental impact? What are their input materials? How do they ship? How do they warehouse? How do they manufacture? Where in the world? Packaging, etc. So we take several inputs about their environmental impact, but we also look at social measures like diversity, transparency, and leadership, in compensation, fair living wage, benefits, where in the world teams are, charitable donation. So it's really important to us that our sustainable brand partners think about sustainability holistically, which means including human beings in that equation and giving a
Yeah.
foundation for the teams to thrive and be long-term productive members of society. Um, yeah.
And so you talked about a climate tax for these brands. Often if it's material or producing it locally, it ends up costing potentially more money. Not in all the cases, but Climate Neutral Club provides a reduction or a discount or a card for consumers to be able to use for these brands. Where do you think these brands are headed? Like, is it a mass amount of scale? Is it more customers that allow them to drop their prices? Like, how are they feeling about that? Because we had Victor from Sapura. They're creating this new waste disposal, or in Canada we call it garbarators, that are automatically composting. And for him, his main thing is when you go to his shelf, his product versus the a traditional garburator are the same price. It's not a consumer choice. It's just in terms of price, it's not going to be a dictating factor. It's this is the better option. So how do you obviously you provide provide the discount to provide that, but how do you feel that the brands are feeling? Is it a scalable thing? Is it just more people being able to have access to it?
I think this concept of a green premium is a function of a lack of scale, and it's a incumbent um, that has been around for decades, producing a product a certain way, has materials, has the process really well defined, and a new party coming in and thinking differently and sourcing materials in a different way, putting them together, manufacturing in a different way at a smaller scale, right? So long term, the green premium should balance itself out. It's a function of um, yeah, scale, access, opportunity for these smaller companies in a lot of cases who are bringing products to market in a new way, and taking maybe more of the cost on themselves than and then making giving themselves arguably a little bit of a harder journey.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
it seems like one of the brands I know that you feature, and I'm a fan of, is Anian. They're a West Coast brand, and they
Mm.
produce everything in Canada. They use recycled wool, and just at the end of the day, the price premium might be there, but they've been able to offset that with quality. But when I think it becomes difficult when you're comparing a similar quality type of product, and in a way that ends up being more climate friendly, ends up having a bit of a premium. And so yeah, we'll see what happens with carbon taxes and those type of things on materials, and then those materials might be more expensive because it's call it unfair, call it as you wish. There's definitely a cost to doing things that's good. When you originally, Carbon Neutral Club came out, you were focused really on kind of a direct to consumer model, and started to realize that companies are looking at solutions as well holistically across their whole organization. Can you just talk a little bit how you've approached this market? It seems like it's a big part of your growth strategy, and just love to kind of just learn a little bit more about that.
So we have come to market focused B2C. Absolutely. It is a big part of our strategy and continues to be. Um, but something curious happened, I guess, in month two that totally changed the path of our story. We launched month one. We had an inbound come in from Kraft Heinz, and they are one example of probably four or five others that I won't mention, but are equally exciting in scale and and uh, and and weight. They reached out saying, "Hey, this is a really exciting opportunity at a corporate level. We're working very hard, top down, on sustainability initiatives across the organization. Of course, a company like Kraft's got a very complex sustainability plan, but their work so far within the sustainability team has been operationally focused. They've got a really great ops plan to reduce, but they've yet to find a meaningful approach to a bottom-up connection of the whole employee base to all that sustainability effort happening at a corporate level. And what we've come to find is that companies at this great scale not only are the sustainability teams looking for buy-in to their work, but from a cultural perspective, sustainability and climate are top of the list of issues that matter for millennials, Gen Zers, and they're raising their hands. We're raising our hands saying, we want to be involved in this work. We are anxious about the future if we don't, and we want to be a part of the solution. So connect us to it. And what Carbon Neutral Club has done and been really effective in is being able to create that support bottom up, the foundation of an organization that could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees in making climate personal, putting it in their hands and saying, this is how you engage. We're going to do this as a team. We're going to measure offset. And then collectively, we're going to gamify, have fun in our reduction journey. And this is now very much so the focus of our company, our growth. And there's some exciting news coming down the pipeline all the time for it.
Every week on Someone Like You, we dive into stimulating conversations with founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and the likes who are consciously and successfully creating sustainable business solutions for the long haul. Tune in every week for a new inspiring conversation on leading climate solutions, and if you're enjoying the podcast, please share it. And also, subscribe to the platform of your choice and give us a rating and a review. It'd be much appreciated. When we think about the companies, and obviously Kraft being quite a large organization, as you mentioned, what are the type of companies that have, just shown a lot of interest? And are you seeing, why are they coming? Like, what's the most kind of common responses of engagement? I think, you talk about it being top of mind for a lot of, employees are asking, what are we doing for climate? And how are we being responsible? But from your side, what are you seeing from the companies that are engaging with Carbon Neutral Club?
We've seen a clear area of focus in companies who are low, call it scopes 1 and scopes 2 emissions. So they don't necessarily manufacture anything in a material massive way. They are companies who are maybe knowledge industries, so tech, finance, companies in communications that have as well very millennial Gen Z dominant workforces. What's been really fascinating is within companies in this category, their scope 3 really is their area of focus. And scope 3 includes everything in your quote unquote value chain. These are vendors, these are, your the life cycle of your product and your employees. Now, this employee line item has been traditionally a really simple thing. All it's been historically is how do my employee business travel and they're commuting to and from work. But companies that we're engaging with and are reaching out to us are looking to use that employee line item as a way to connect at a greater scale with the employee base in sustainability. Both because, as I mentioned, it's been this bottom-up wave of, hey, where can we plug in? What can we do? And what are you all doing on the sustainability team? We want to see it. Carbon Neutral Club creates that connectivity between the talent demand, saying, hey, we want this, plug us in, and covering the real meaningful sustainability needs of an organization.
Yeah, and it can see it also being a bit of a community aspect, or as a team aspect. They're all learning, they're all getting educated, they're all looking at ways to reduce together. So a company, in this example, obviously we firsthand at Red Brick have experienced it. So, we got to experience kind of how the entire journey goes from, Jack, you graciously did a lunch and learn for the team, educated everybody just to, set a baseline of what is the problem, what's really going on, what's climate, why are we worried about all this? And then you give, an employer the opportunity to offset all of their employees, or partially offset if they choose to. And then all the employees get opportunities to look at ways that individually they can shift their consumption and to the companies and the brands that are doing things a little bit differently. So that whole
Hmm.
community and that whole learning is really great. But just wanted to touch a little bit around the what happens around just the offsets. So, you mentioned offsets being part of a solution. How does Carbon Neutral Club offset these employees, and how do you pick your projects? All of those big pieces about just how does all these offsets work?
Yeah, big questions, great questions. So Carbon Neutral Club's funding 3 carbon removal projects as of today, and those 3 are the Chinchina River Basin, so it's a reforestation project in Colombia, CM Solar, which is a solar installation in Thailand, and Crow Lake Wind, which is a South Dakota wind energy installation. So I guess these are the projects we support, but the more foundational piece of knowledge is what is an actual offset and how do they create carbon removal in their existence. So a carbon offset is a credit. It's unique. There's only one that you can purchase, and when you purchase it, it's retired forever. This credit represents a behavior that happened somewhere else that removed carbon from the atmosphere. I'll give you an example of what sort of behavior may create a carbon offset or could. Let's say, Marco, you decided that you wanted to spend the rest of your days planting trees. And I'm going to use this because it's a very tangible example. It's not necessarily the highest quality type of an offset, but you wanted to plant trees. You went out one day, started planting, realized, hey, I got bills to pay. I have a life. If I'm going to spend all my time doing this, I need to have some balance. So you may need to hire a team. You may need to purchase a piece of land in which you're going to actually reforest or conserve. This project in itself requires some form of income, right? You do need to be supported in some way. What you could do is build a carbon offset credit offering, reach out to a third-party verification standard. So the verification standard that we support are Gold Standard and VCS, 2 of the best and most stringent in the world, and have them come in and assess the program, the amount of carbon that you're removing. Every tree you plant has an associated carbon removal over its lifetime. And you can understand what the year-long carbon removal impact of this project will be and break that up into individual credits, which you can sell. Now, it's really important that your project isn't drawing a profit using carbon offsets, and that's a key part of what that verification standard will make sure is happening. So the standard's job is to make sure that the money goes where you say it's going, and that the removal is real, and that it's additional and permanent, and that is the structure of a carbon offset, and it can be applied to all kinds of things. Tree planting is simplest, but in the sense of a renewable energy project. Let's say you're looking to expand an existing project and traditional funding options aren't available. Carbon offsets could be a great tool to get you there. Other early stage technologies may use it as a way to get themselves up and off the ground. So very high leverage, can be very high impact way of investing in direct projects that are having a meaningful reduction on carbon.
And these offsets are voluntary.
They are. The projects that we support are on the voluntary carbon offset market. There's also a regulatory market, but that is a separate thing entirely.
Yeah. You mentioned an interesting point just around that the project can't be for profit. Is that part of, I know that there was, as you mentioned, it needs to be, a project that wasn't going to be started as well, in order to be considered that. And so this is all through the verification process, but, for profit, that is also a piece of how you're able to sell that voluntary credit.
Within the concept of how that money gets used, there's a term called additionality, which is a really core tenet of what a quote unquote quality carbon offset is. And additionality really means at its core that the carbon removal would not have been able to happen without the financial support that you're providing through the carbon offset. So if we strip away this concept of profit, we just think about are we enabling behavior, or could this project have gone and gotten a loan, or could they have gone and done another, raise their own profit or equity, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and for somebody that's thinking about, or wondering the difference between carbon offset and carbon removal, these projects are carbon removal, but the idea when they say carbon offset is that, if you do have 15 tons of carbon per year, and you were to offset 15 tons of carbon per year through removal, it's an offset. But there is obviously options as well to go further if you can, and further being, maybe you would offset 30 tons per year, and then that's looking at using those tools to be potentially being on the removal side. Is that how you look at it? Are companies looking at it that way, to go even further than what is the bare minimum?
I mean, if you can, of course. In our context, we use carbon offsets as a way to, in a lot of ways, educate and create this concept of a balance. There is an input, there is an output. So our members measure their current footprint, and then we help them offset to about their current total footprint. But you can absolutely go beyond your total footprint, and companies do for sure. But there is some the narrative and creating this interest and action around yourself at a personal level being neutral is very powerful, and it's something that we assume to be the starting point. And anything beyond is we work to incentivize to get you there.
Yeah. Can you share any with the employee program? Can you share any successful or any fun success stories that you've had so far with an employee program?
I think just the scale of the program and its success is really what should be highlighted. I mean, to date, our community, we've got dozens of clients, companies who have rolled out the employee program. We, as a community, have offset over 3,000 tons of carbon since launch, and this is recurring impact, right? Which is super powerful when you think about that. As the community continues to grow, that is a recurring monthly impact. So that's fantastically exciting, and gets to be something pretty big.
Yeah.
We've had on the other side of it, there's the measurement and offsetting, and that is recurring incredible impact across the projects that we're supporting. But there's also all the brand partners, and to date through the employee program, we've helped brand partners grow, and there's been meaningful support through our network, through to our sustainable brand partner network, and each individual member is having a meaningful ROI. Just last month, 45% of members saw a scenario where they actually were able to save more money month over month than the cost of their membership, which is exciting because it reinforces the incentive model that we're trying to create, where it's take the way that you're living today, find opportunities within it to funnel through sustainable alternatives, and you're gonna it's a it's a no-brainer once you start to see there's an actual ROI. So that's also been an exciting win.
Yeah, I originally, I always thought everybody talks a lot about just individuality and that what can you do, and what I love is just thinking about scale. I was just listening to it was at ad week. I got invited to a sustainability virtual conference, and it was the CMO of Procter and Gamble. Obviously a massive multinational company. I'm sure they've had their share of what they've polluted and their products, and we've seen all their big huge Tide bottles and all that kind of stuff over the years. But what was just crazy was they have a lens into scalability, and he was talking about they have created what you should use now is just wash your laundry in just cold water, and their products. That simple thing, if they had all of their customers switch, or it was like 80 or 90% of the customers switch just to use cold water, was almost the equivalent to like a million cars off the road. And I was kind of blown away just by the scale, and makes sense. You know, you can think about how much laundry detergent they sell. And we see it here at the office where we were just talking about our kind of digital, the amount of how much digital carbon it comes from digital, and we were talking about this, and somebody that I work with was like, yeah, I haven't been putting Netflix on in the background anymore because of that. And so there are all these little things that we do, and I love the aspect of the employee, and then all the employees together. They're a big team. They're thinking about it. They're getting educated. They're all making kind of small differences. So I think you're right around that large scalability across everything. So
Mhm.
um, when you think about, I'm sure there's lots of opportunities, but challenges too. Has there been any challenges that you've encountered? You know, this is a startup. It's in climate. It's a new thing. You had lots of education. I'd love to just understand some of those challenges that you've had as you build your brand.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's startups are they're hard. It's hard to build. So it all comes with challenges, and we picked a problem and designed a solution that unfortunately is polarizing in some parts of the world. So there have been some challenges around the yeah, being able to tell the story that we feel is the right story. It's we very intentionally are trying to bring a plain language, friendly face, positive, non-finger pointing, non-fear driven uh, experience to climate, and feel very wholeheartedly that this is what we need at scale. So this there's a we're combating a scenario of misinformation, and just yeah, it's almost like we picked a task to re-educate in a lot of ways, and it can be tricky. So at a corporate level, we're working constantly to make it simple, make it digestible, but also provide the depth and the data and the research needed for anyone who wants to dig deeper, because it is there, and we're trying to make it very consumable and in a positive light. So I think that's like our company's challenge at a I guess more personal level. Startups are hard. They take a toll. And we're a small team punching way above our weight class every single day. And I think a part of it, just how we've supported one another, and a key part of our company and success has been this empathetic culture that we worked really hard to build. Something that my co-founder Jeff deserves a massive shout out for creating as a recurring theme and core part of our working model is something called fika. Fika is borrowed from Swedish tradition. It's effectively at 2:30 every day. Company stops. Everyone hands off the keyboard. Go for a walk. Whatever it is, do some push-ups. Do a little workout. Call your mom. Whatever it is, but don't think about work. And it's done wonders for our team's ability to just stay grateful and in the moment and be productive, with all the chaos that is the modern workday.
Yeah, I love that. Talking about startups, have you, from a funding perspective, how have you funded the business? Has it been through combination of venture, through grants? How have you funded the business?
Yeah, we have historically we got it off the ground. Jeff Rowley and I with some we bootstrapped it at about a month or two post launch. We put together a pre-seed round. So that was from a group of strategic angels, and separate. And that was has been what we've lived on from our 0 to 1. We also entered and ended up placing second out of 82 startups, which is awesome, in something called the cards and payments challenge. It was run by MasterCard and Patch and Economy, and we ended up winning some non-dilutive grant money through that, which is the best type of money. But now we're accelerating and actively in our seed process. We're relatively late in it. We're raising an equity round, venture round, and we're accelerating it really, frankly, because we've seen more engagement and we have more demand at an enterprise level in our pipeline than we had anticipated. So we've accelerated our plan to scale the team, enterprise proof, I guess, our product and ops to be able to roll out this program at a great scale. So exciting, I guess, reason to go fundraise, but yeah, we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah. And where do you want to see Carbon Neutral Club? Like, where's the grand ambitions and the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, we ultimately are the centerpiece between three really important stakeholder groups in the fight against climate change and making climate action available at scale. There's individuals, there's businesses, sustainable businesses, and then there's employers. Each of these stakeholders with our model are incentivized to support one another and help this flywheel spin faster and faster as they do so. We will be the way in which consumers enter the climate problem space and the way in which sustainable businesses are created and scale and grow. Employers play a massive role as they are, the arbiters of opinion and priorities within huge organizations. And we want to support them to have the greatest impact that they can have across their teams, and then make climate action a normal aspect of decision making through any individual or entrepreneur business owner's life.
Yeah, I love from the marketing perspective or the kind of community perspective of what you're building, being an employer, and then you have your employees, and then you have all these brands, and there's a connection and interest for these brands to be connected with these employees, and I can see why a lot of people are using and utilizing the membership, because they're finding that connection. And from a marketing perspective and building a brand perspective, you can't see a better relationship. And as that scales, it also scales for those brands too. So, well, we're kind of getting at the end of our time, so I just wanted to just kind of end. I'm a huge fan of the book The Lorax. I ship it out all the time to people. I love the story. I read it to my boys all the time. But it's just a simple story about overuse of our resources. And at the end of the story, of course, a child gets a seed and he can change that outcome. And so a lot of people ask, what can they do? But what can businesses do or people can do to take that first step from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to education, understanding what your influence scope of influence is. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, your scope of influence is great over the decisions, the way in which you budget and prioritize, and the way in which you prioritize climate across your team. I would encourage business owners to consider and think bottom up in how they discuss climate, and not consider it only in the way that the business operates and find opportunities to improve, but to consider the fact that employers are funding and supporting the lives lived by employees, and there's a very high impact and logical place for employers to play in helping individuals within their team find meaningful opportunities to reduce. In terms of category, at an individual level, best things you can do: reduce commuting time, reduce time in car or time on plane where you can, and trim back on red meat if we're really going to boil it down. But those are the big places to start.
Well, Jack, it's been great to have you. I'm super excited to continue just to follow everything that you guys are doing, and I know that the people that have been working on it so far have been integrated with Carbon Neutral Club. It's been great to see, and I love the energy, the startup energy that you're building, and congratulations to you and your co-founders and your team to what you guys built so far, and really excited to see what you guys do in the future.
Thanks, Marco. It's flattering, and this was great. Best part of my week. Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks again. Yeah, thank you again. This podcast is co-produced with The Brand is Female. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Someone Like You. And if you did, please share this. We're a new podcast, and I would love it if you could share it with a family member, friend, colleague, work colleague. Share it on Slack, whoever you do. Just share and spread the message of these incredible brands. Please also support these type of companies. They're doing the hard thing, and the hard thing often takes a lot of people to get on board. And don't forget, please subscribe on the platform of your choice and give us a rating and review. I'm Marco Pimentel. Thank you for joining us today. For more information on Someone Like You, you can find us on Instagram at Someone Like You Podcast, with all the links to the podcast, our website, and more information about the brands that we feature. Thank you again.